And particularly welcome to this session about the brooding trap and a self-coaching approach to escape from it. I just saw the last minutes of the talk before and I just heard it was very technical. Now we get very personal. We go into coaching, and self-coaching normally means just coaching myself. So it's just a one-person thing. We try out this interaction with a little quiz. Let us start. What kind of brooding do you think we will be talking about in this session? Will it be brooding in the meaning of keeping chicks warm and comfy? Or will it be brooding in the meaning of being engaged in thoughts that bring you into a negative state of mind? Just enter A or B into the chat. Okay, most of you want to go for option B. Thank you for that. And lucky me, I'm better prepared for that one. So, and the test has worked out. Chat is working. And once in a while I see it, by the way. Well, why did I pick this topic? This is me. My name is Anja Stiedl, and I'm an independent Agile coach and trainer located in Munich in Germany. And like so many others of you, just 9 months ago, I was absolute fan of sticky notes and co-located workspaces and everybody being together at one room. And only 9 months ago, I could not think about another way of successful collaboration with colleagues and teams. But yeah, VUCA hit the world with the coronavirus, and my work has changed to being fully remote now. And I actually like it a lot. Through video conferencing, I have a lot of contacts and sessions with people. I discuss, I elaborate, and it feels for me like direct interaction with everybody, connection, togetherness with people. But sometimes when the call is over and I reflect on the conversation, it leaves me with a weird thought. Did I really make my point? What did he mean with that comment? There was some motion going on. What was that? And I start feeling like this, or like this, or like this. And I'm brooding. And with this remote setting, I'm totally miss this opportunity to just meet people spontaneously, just go over and clarify the situations instantly, to have the spontaneous talks to people. So I keep brooding alone on myself, and I need strategies to cope with it and help myself out of this trap. And actually, I'm not alone. I hear from colleagues, friends, clients that they feel the same and also need a method to cope with it. And so I want to share my strategy with you here so that we as well, coaches, leaders, colleagues can get ourselves out of that brooding trap or help others with it. Let's see, how's your situation? How often are you brooding? Never? Once in a while? Regularly? Or too often? Okay, Sora, could you just give me the average of those numbers?
No, you're asking me to quickly like sum it up, but the average would be closer to 1 than to 2, I guess.
Okay, somewhere between 1 and 2. Thank you. Thank you. And I have another activity for you, but to think just for yourself. What was the last topic that you were brooding about? And make it one sentence. What was the central thought about it? Write it down, take a note. We will pick it up later. I just wait 2 minutes here so that you can sort yourself out and find something. Okay. The approach that I will introduce you to here is called the work. This was defined by Byron Katie in the 1980s. The work is a way of identifying and questioning your stressful thoughts, and a way of giving you back the peace of mind and freedom of choice to let go of them. I like a lot of it because of its simplicity. It just consists of 4 questions and turnarounds. And I want to introduce you to it with a little story. This is Rebecca. She is the product owner of the Beer Finder app. She is excited about the product, the latest features, the use to the customer, and she talks about it all day long. She has so many ideas how to improve it, how to distinguish from the market. She loves her work with people and the energy and creativity in the team. And every evening, she reflects on the day that has passed. Let's see, what was there today? Oh, first thing this morning, we got overwhelming feedback from the CEO about the new feature, Sneak Beer. He's our largest sponsor, and wow, this was good. And then we had a real user in the review meeting. I forgot her name, but she had interesting new idea. Perhaps we can turn it into a new feature. The strategy to have real end users invited in our reviews pays out so fast. Cool. Oh, and finally later we could finally have this strategy meeting for Beer Finder. But what was this? There was this disturbing look from Susanna. Did I do something wrong? And John made critical comments all the time. Is everything okay there? Did really everybody agree? Or did I miss some vibes? It looks like they don't respect me as a product owner. I'm totally screwed. Well, you see, Rebecca is brooding. And she reinforces her thoughts in vicious circles, and they are becoming more and more negative with every turn. Let's see how we would use the work in the situation. Let's first get her out of the trap to better speak to her. Rebecca, what is your most important, your most hurting thought? Well, let me think. I guess it is they don't respect me as a product owner. Is this true? Yes, sure, I said so. I just said so. Yes, of course. Is this really true? But you mean really? They don't yeah, well, it was at the end of the meeting. So actually it's not really true. How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? I get angry, I guess. I shout at my dog and I swear. And who or what would you be without that thought? Who would I be? I would be calmer and nicer to people and more self-confident. Yes, I think that is it, self-confident. Now, turn that thought around. What do you mean, turn it around? They don't respect me as a product owner. Do you mean they do respect me as a product owner? Yes, that could be one way. Can you think of different ways to turn it around? I don't respect them as a product owner. Okay, and another way? I don't respect myself as a product owner. Wow, that was great work. And actually, that was it. This work consists of 4 questions and the turnarounds, and you have seen it all. With this, Rebecca has elaborated on options to think differently. And she will talk, if she will walk this path, will totally be up to her. In opposite to other coaching approaches that I know, there is no commitment at the end what you do. There is no thing that you have to do or that you promise. It just leaves it open and leaves it open to the coachee to go with it or not. And gives this peace of mind and freedom to decide what to do next. I will now go over the questions with you. You have already seen them, but I go in theory. I give a little bit more information to them, about them. And in addition, I invite you to pick up the note that you wrote earlier and try to think about possible answers that you would give to those questions. Yeah. The first question is it true? Obviously, there are 2 possible answers, yes and no. For the record, if the response is no, we would skip the next question and go to question 3. But most commonly, it's the answer here is yes. This person has just been brooding about it and is suffering from this thought, and then somebody comes along and asks if it is true, and immediately there comes out this yes. This is why we dig deeper. In the next question, number 2, is it really true? And this question can also be clarified or specified more with like, what does reality look like? Can you be 100% sure that it is true without any exceptions? If you're giving an answer and have to live with this one answer for the rest of your life, is it really true? this sentence, this thought that you're having. And obviously, again, there are two options, yes and no. The most common is no here. When we have these thoughts, we mostly also use generalizing words. Always, never, everybody, nobody, and so on in our hurting sentences. And here we realize that most of the times this is not true, that it is always the situation. Go ahead, take a moment and think about your sentence, your thought. Is this really true? However, the answer, both cases, we go to the next question. How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? More questions or clarifying questions could be in this direction. How do you treat him, her, them? How do you treat yourself? What do you feel? And this is just an examination of the situation. I invite you again to look at your thought and think, how do you react when you believe that thought? Let's go to the fourth question. Who or what would you be without this thought? And here I want to emphasize that we explicitly do not ask to give up this thought. It is just thinking about who would you be without it. Close your eyes, imagine the situation. How would that be? And again, I give you a moment to think about your thought. How would it be if you didn't have it, wouldn't have it? Last step in this approach are the turnarounds. And here we are exploring options for a different way of future or different options for the future. And we turn around the sentence in three different ways: to the opposite, to the other person, and to myself. To the opposite means if in the sentence there's the word not, then you just remove the not, or if there isn't a not in there, then you add it. Like, they do not respect me as a product owner, they do respect me as the product owner. To the other person means that you change the swap places. They do not respect me, I do not respect them. And to myself means that you rephrase the sentence, that you do it to yourself. Like, I do not respect myself. And actually, we leave it with this, and there's no more. And what happens is that your mind has explored alternative thoughts or options and then can decide if they want to take them and go and let go of the thought, or want to stick with the thought and make something, stick with it, live with it. What I have learned when I use it a lot, when another situation comes up, I quickly go into asking myself, is it really true? And I do not really start brooding at all, because I much clearer distinguish between things that have happened and things that I'm just making up in my mind. Yeah, can you share some thoughts that you had? What happened? What did you experience when you tried it here? Thoughts, ideas? Okay, we go to one other example. And meet Roger. Oh man, I'm stressed out today. All those meetings with Claire. Claire, the agile coach, and her never-ending excitement about agility. I cannot stand this any longer. You need to embrace change, motivate people, let teams self-organize. Who does she think that she is? Nice, smart, always smiling. She thinks that we don't know our business, that we were not creative in the past, that we are blocking people from work. And how can Marcus be so ignorant and fall for her games and tricks? Why put her in charge of the transformation? He knew that I was longing for my promotion. He doesn't see how much I'm working. First one in the office, last one in the office. My opinion doesn't count anything here anymore. They don't see my efforts at all. I should just pack my stuff and leave. Where did I put this cheat sheet that I got from that conference, an Agile conference? It was something about 4 questions and, here it is. It says, is it true? What? They don't see my efforts. Yes, this is true. Is it really true? Are you kidding me right now? Do they ask my opinion? Do they put me in charge? No, it's true. They don't see my efforts. And how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? Well, finally, a better question. Of course, I'm stressed. I become aggressive. I'm complaining. I'm afraid I cannot keep up. All these young people with their new ideas. And who or what would you be without that thought? Wow, without it? Perhaps I would be open to the new ideas. I could even combine them with my experience. and I would be in a better mood, of course. And now turn it around. But the first thing is easy. They see my efforts. Really weird, this thought. I don't see my efforts. I don't see their efforts. I don't see my efforts. That was it? Wow, I have to think about those sentences. And well, actually right now, I feel less stressed about it. Looks like a good start. Now, after you have met Rebecca, have some theory about the work, after you have met Roger, what can you think of? What could you try first? Can we try again with a little interaction? Okay. So this means writing sentences in the chat. Or do you have questions about it? Okay, I can see the chat now. Listen to her carefully, I read. Roger, get aware of his own efforts, empathy and listening. Okay. So, thank you. Do you have questions? I would go with the 4 questions and I start.
Okay, so you finished, Anja, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's head into the question section. And let me check quickly whether there's already something in Slack. I don't see anything. People were listening to your story. Now let me start with a few questions of my own, and then in the meantime, people will add their questions, and I'll pick those up. So, I mean, let's just go to the last question you posted to us. What would be your next step? What would you do in that scenario? Can you clarify that for us?
So you asked me what is my next step. I'm using this, and as I said earlier, whenever weird thoughts come up, I say, oh, is it right? So I immediately go into those questions and use them, and it feels like letting go much easier than sticking to them. This is what I kind of do all the time. Actually, I have found this approach again. I have known it like 8 years ago, and I had kind of forgotten about it. But this brooding topic came up, yeah, as I said, in this situation with a home office and actually always being alone to myself and having to cope with all the impressions on my own without discussing with anybody. What I do when I when I get to know a new coaching approach, I try it out with the next situation that looks like it could use it.
Mm-hmm. So what I was referring to was the end of the story you were telling.
Okay.
you had left us with a question like what would be one thing that we do, and a few people had posted their answers to this. I was curious whether you have something to basically close this. Then, what what would your perspective on that?
On this story. Actually, I have to clarify. This was not the end of the story. The story is ended before because it leaves it open to the coachee, in this case, to Roger. He has to decide, and he can decide. And this is something I like most here because it leaves really the respect to the coachee that they can decide on their own situation.
Mm.
The question for what would you like to do? How did I phrase it? What will you try out first? Would be to you, as when you heard this talk, these scenarios, what would you do with it?
Yeah. Okay.
Try it out.
Try it out. Try it out. So
Good.
you mentioned that this brooding topic came up due to being most of the time away from people.
Yes.
Now, did you also have that going through your head prior to the COVID pandemic? Because I can imagine, or I've been in situations where you go through a meeting, and after the meeting you ask yourself the same questions as you pointed out, like, did I make the point that I wanted to make? Did I do this? How do I think? Did I take the right reactions? Did I interpret them right? And so for me personally, the reason I'm asking is, even with COVID, I don't see the big difference. I've always had those questions after any meeting. The thing that I've done is, after a meeting, I just connect with those people on one-on-one or whatever, and try to clarify the open questions that I have in my head.
Yeah.
So where do you see the biggest differences?
Yeah, and this is where the biggest, as you mentioned, the biggest difference I see, because nowadays you, in this home office or remote situation, you cannot just step up and have a spontaneous conversation anymore, because you have to design every conversation, every meeting. You invite people to a meeting. So I did not have these brooding situations so much when I was meeting people in person. As well, you stay a little bit in the room, you speak to one other person, and somebody's nodding and says, wow, good meeting. This is what you do not see anymore here, because meeting ends, Zoom call is over, and you're alone. So you don't have these connections. You don't have the connection that you go to the coffee corner, somebody says, wow, those people reacted weird. So at least you have some alliance that, yeah, some feedback on it. And not the, now we have to ask for explicit feedback all the time to get feedback at all. As we have to set up meetings to meet people.
Yeah. So, and this is interesting. Now, this leads me to one of the potential ways to deal with it, right? I'm not going to call it solution, but being very explicit. So the job to be done, if I come from a product perspective, so the job to be done would be to get some kind of feedback on how the meeting just went. And if you know that you're going to be in that state of mind after the meeting, not being very clear, one thing that we could do while this pandemic is still ongoing is, instead of brooding, go out and actively ask for that feedback. Or how do you see that?
Yes, you could, but I asked for feedback a lot, and still I'm thinking about, did I really get everything that was in the room? Did I make my point? Did they really understand what I got? I cannot ask them, do you understand me? I can easier estimate on and see if they took it on, what I said, what I tried to tell them, what I tried to share, when I'm with them in the same room and I see them all the time. But as I don't see them after this, I don't know what's going on there. And yeah, so for me, it's a difference. And yeah, making it explicit with always, like, I just imagine having a feedback wall at the end of each meeting is something that is, yeah, of course, good to do, but I guess there's still some vibes in between that you can feel. I think it wouldn't be enough for me.
Okay.
Would it for you, do you think?
So if I reflect on the past few months, I have not been that often in this brooding situation.
Okay.
And I think mostly because whenever we got into it, I specifically, or also members of my team, we just reached out to each other to get some feedback. And maybe this is due to the fact that we have been working with each other for a very long time now, and we know each other. And even in the virtual setting, we can mostly read the Zoom, right? But I can imagine if you are doing this with a group of complete strangers, that it could be weird. Now, with regards to situations where I mostly have complete strangers, which is all of the trainings that I run, I try to increase the frequency of feedback during the training in order to really get that, that job to be done past, right? And that has helped me a lot, this frequent feedback.
Yeah,
So
I think you mentioned something very important. A team that has worked together for a long time, for them it's much easier to go into virtual distributed setting in opposite to people who you just meet.
Yeah.
I said I get this information. People tell this to me. Some of them are salespeople who have to go out and make meetings with clients, with new clients, and for them it's really weird to do it somewhere remotely. Some of them even cannot even do video conferencing, and then they say, okay, did I get everything said? And you cannot, when you try to sell them something, come up with a feedback form at the end, or not so easily.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is really the biggest difference, right? And I think for teams that have been working with each other for a long time, but still do face the situation that you described, maybe that's a symptom that there are certain things for them to work on as a team, right? In order to not have everyone, because once you get into this brooding mode, you can't be really productive.
Yes.
Independent from what your role is in that team, you can't be really productive. Now, regarding these 4 questions that you shared with us, Ingrid is asking, do you have some statistics to how many people this 4-question method helped to deal with their doubts? I guess this will be difficult for you to answer, but maybe you do have something on it.
Well, I actually, no, I don't have statistics. I can just refer to the website of the work. I mentioned it earlier. It's thework, I think, .com. And well, Byron Katie is introducing her work there, or this approach there, and she is like since the early 90s. She is teaching it and using it with many clients. She's also using it with coaching, not just self-coaching. I use it just for self-coaching. It helps. That's where it works for me best. And so perhaps if you need statistics, perhaps she has something about it. But it has been around for a while.
And you just mentioned, so you use it primarily for self-coaching.
Yeah.
Now, while doing this presentation, you basically shared this technique with us.
Yes.
To what extent do you to what extent have you shared it with your coachees before? Because I know you do a lot of work as a coach, right? To what extent have you shared this technique, and what has been the feedback of the people that have started applying this? So where were potentially the first successes that they had using this technique, and where were potential challenges when they started using this technique?
Let me think. I have shared it with clients, not on a regular basis, just once in a while when I hear that somebody wants something for his talking to himself. What was the first reaction is always, what kind of weird questions are these? Explicitly the first two, like, is it true? Is it really true? Yes. But the reaction is also that they also like this about the simplicity. That you just have to remember these 4 questions. You can use it wherever you are. And you also asked what were their first struggles with it. To not pressure themselves into then, and now what do I do with it? So not bring themselves into a conclusion at the end or committing to something. Just to leave it like this, and then perhaps sometime later come on, am I still thinking about this problem or this situation?
So do you mean deliberately parking a topic as well? Because even if you ask yourself these 4 questions, you might not always get immediately the answers to them. And that might result in even too much brooding. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Okay. So once people start applying this technique, now, what I'm thinking, you mentioned that one good way is just to get started with this, right? And you mentioned yourself, the moment you learn a coaching tool, you just look for the next opportunity, and when it opens up, you just apply it, especially if it is things that you do for your self-coaching, right? You don't need to permission, etc.
You don't need permission. That's the an easy way to start it. And well, you don't screw up with a client. You just screw up with yourself if it doesn't work for you.
If it doesn't work for you. Now, how would you assess whether it's working for you or not? Do you have any techniques, any tips or tricks to share? So once you start applying something new, similar to the technique that you just shared with us, how do you assess whether it's being successful? Is it just like a feeling thing, or do you have something else behind it?
It's a kind of a feeling, but it is also like when I use it the next time, I think, okay, how deep have I been into this situation? How deep was I in brooding, or how quick did I pull myself out?
So okay, so one measure of success, if you can call it like this, even, would be not so much that you brood less, but that you pull yourself out faster.
Yeah, that I realize it faster and then pull myself out faster.
And similar to many things in terms of professional growth, especially leadership, this is again tied to the topic of self-awareness, right? Being aware of the situation you're in, being aware of the mind that you like, the state of mind that you're in, and then having practice in applying certain tools and techniques to deal with that specific challenge that you're facing at that moment. Now, when I think about this, we were talking about leadership earlier as part of Jürgen's talk. Have you mostly shared this with people being in so-called leadership position and managerial positions? Or do you also apply this a lot with teams that you're coaching and people basically being on the front line? You mentioned people doing sales, etc. Where have you applied this the most?
In one-on-one situations.
Okay.
So not in the entire team, only in one-on-one. So when somebody tells me, or I hear that they might benefit from it, then I share it.
Mm-hmm. And the type of question that you asked, I found it very interesting. So the first one was, is it true? The second one was, is it really true?
Yeah.
And when I saw your slide, I immediately thought this could also be something that we can use in a retrospective of a team, right? Because teams in a retrospective bring up a lot of things, and then you can apply the question, like, is it true? Like, do we, and then is it really true? And probably you will get then the point, oh, someone is waving, great. You probably get the sense like, oh, maybe it's not the case, or maybe it is the case. And then we could use this as a group technique to dive deeper, identify what the issue is, and come up with a solution for us as a team, as a group to move forward. Have you ever applied that?
I have not applied it, but I could think of this, that it would work. Particularly with these explanation questions that I did. So what does really true mean? Are there exceptions? If we have to stick with this answer for the rest of our lives, is it really true? Do we have any ideas, situations where it could be differently? So yeah, this could be good questions to discuss in a team, in a retrospective about and I had just the idea, but actually I did not try it. Use it in a retrospective when we as a team have like a topic with another team, with external, where we say, okay, how do we handle this? And then if they go into some kind of blaming, or really explicitly using it there and say, well, is it true? Is it true? And what does it make with us?
Yeah, because the same way that individuals can go through this, okay, how are they perceiving me? Do they see the efforts that we do? The same you can apply to teams, right?
Yeah.
You can look at that, like the dynamics between a team and the manager of that team. Does the manager see the effort that you're putting in? And is it really true? Yeah. And in our last Agile 100 session, we kicked off with a session between my coach and myself. And most of the things that I have dealt with are assumptions. And the questions that you ask, again, go back to the assumptions that we hold, right? Is it really true? Basically goes back to the assumptions that we hold. And and you could even extend it and ask, why do we believe this to be true? And then you can dig deeper and identify a few things. I think this is really interesting, and I'm thankful for the questions that you shared with us to assess our own thinking and dig ourselves out of this brooding. Now, Zuzi, do you have a question for Anja before we close this session?
I might, actually. So what was the most inspirational moment you experienced during working with organizations or during your professional life? Can you share some short story with us?
The most exceptional moment.
Well, any inspirational moment.
What I like most is when I try out something new and when people follow. So when, for example, well, I said I did not use this tool in a retrospective, but when I try out something, for example, I make a software developer team draw a comic about the sprint, for example, and I'm so afraid of how will they do it? How will they just laugh at me and ignore me or something like this? But no, they just do it and they follow, and there comes great creativity out of it. And this is like, I have to be courageous to do this, to introduce something new, and they just respond to it. And at the end, they are, it's like role modeling of being courageous, and there comes out more ideas and more discussion about things that are sensitive to them, so they are opening up more. This is the greatest moments that I'm having, that I like so much about my job.
Thank you for sharing.
You're
I have
welcome.
time for one more, I guess. Do you have one more, Sarah? A 1 minute question?
No, I don't have any more questions for now. I'm still brooding about my questions.
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you brooding all day.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. And I don't see any more questions left from the audience. So,
Well,
yeah, I
then my
use
last,
or you go, Susie.
then my last question is, what should we remember from today?
That is easy. 4 questions and a turnaround.
Can you repeat those for us so we sort of like, leave with them resonating in our heads?
Is it true? Is it really true? How do you react? What happens when you believe this thought? And how would you be without that thought?